I mean, I've had a number of key pivotal moments that have changed my life. The first was meeting my high school best friend. So I grew up in Indianapolis, and on my first day of school as a freshman, I met a young man who we got in an argument because he was sitting in the teacher's seat. And it turns out that was the first of many arguments. We moved on from where he sat, though, to politics and religion and more interesting things. But as we became friends, I would hear rumors about him that his parents were drug dealers and drug addicts. And it was a little jarring for me because at the time he was a senior, he was a straight A student, varsity athlete, getting ready to go to the Naval Academy. I had a huge crush, and it just didn't add up. So it took a number of months, but he eventually actually typed an 8-page letter on one of those old Apple II computers and gave it to me that explained what had happened. And it turns out years earlier, when he was in junior high, his mom was in a really bad car accident. She was temporarily paralyzed, so she couldn't walk. She ended up losing her job. They ended up losing their house. They moved from suburban Indianapolis into public housing. She became very depressed and addicted to painkiller Dilaudid. That spiraled out of control to where she not only became a heavy drug user, but began selling drugs to support her own habit. And so he basically transitioned from cornfields to crack house in a matter of months, and that coincided with his transition into high school. So his freshman year, he had failed all of his classes and was in great danger of dropping out. And it was at that time that a group of teachers basically saw what was happening, and they're like, we're not gonna let this happen. So they would drive to his house, they would bring him food, they would give him rides to school, they would make sure that he had clean clothing. You know, it's a lot easier to go to school if you have food in your stomach and you have clothes that smell good and are clean to wear. So, you know, that radically changed his life, and as a result, radically changed mine. It took me a very long time, but I eventually convinced him to date me and then marry me. And so, you know, Thread, it wasn't founded because of that experience. It was actually founded years later. You know, that experience made me fall in love with him. But Thread was founded because I, as a grad student at Hopkins, found myself feeling extremely blue. And I am not a person who's normally blue. And I couldn't put my finger on why. And I felt like a spoiled brat, even trying to articulate to people why I was unhappy, because you know, I was in a great graduate program. I was married to someone I loved dearly. On paper, everything looked great. And it was around that time that I was just stopped at a street light right on the corner of Caroline and Orleans. And for some reason, I had never even noticed there was a high school there on that corner. And it was like the blinders had just come off, and I saw to my left there was Dunbar High School. I noticed then there was public housing to my right. And then out in front of me was Hopkins. And you know, oftentimes people say, oh, did you think to yourself the disparity between the two corners? And it's like, no. What I actually thought was I felt more competent to form friendships with high school students. So I just thought there must be students in Dunbar that are just like my husband, who are incredible people with tremendous potential but are really distracted. And I felt more confident to try and form relationships with them than I did my own peers at Hopkins. And that was really the aha. The aha was that what I was suffering from was isolation. I didn't have any family in the area. I'm an introvert, so I didn't have a whole lot of friends. It was a super competitive environment. And so Thread was really founded not to help anyone other than myself. And that really is core to how we do everything today. Again, going back to, there are no haves and have-nots. There are just every single human being, where part of the human condition is to want to be connected to and be seen by other people, because it's in being seen by someone else that it's reflected back to you who you are. It's a huge part of your own ability to know yourself and to be known. And so that's what we do in Thread every day, and that's what Thread has done for me for the last 12 years in a profound way.